Welcome. This is Beth from Ink Art by Beth Cluth, and we are going to be making beautiful, I call them ocean sunrise. These are just a few. You can see how each one is very unique. You never know exactly what you're going to get. I'm going to try to get the glare off of here. And this is a landscape that I included in my live workshop, Abstract Landscapes, and it's a lot of fun. It's actually pretty easy, and I think you get beautiful results. So we are going to make an ocean sunrise. So I'm doing this on Yupo paper, and based on the other tools, I'm going to be using a 5x7 sheet of Yupo paper. I like to use the pads that are 11x14, and I cut them in quarters. That way you have a little bit bigger than 5x7, so that when you go to mat it, you have a little bit more, you have a little more leeway. You can move it over a little bit this way or that way, just in case some weird things happen on the edges. So we're going to be working on 5x7, and the tool that we're going to be using to make the sunrise itself is a straw. But I use these big, they call them milkshake straws. This is a smoothie straw. These are from the dollar store. This is from IKEA. Yep, IKEA. They're just a little bit longer and a little bit thicker. So that's what I find works the best. Primarily because they're stiffer than your regular disposable straw. They're just easier handled. But if you don't have one of these, you can certainly do this with this regular straw. I like the bigger and longer ones. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, the composition is going to be mostly sky with the sunrise, and then the water will be below. So I put a piece of washi tape here as a mask, so that try to keep some of the sky colors up here and not into the bottom part. So if you're not familiar with washi tape, it's available at any craft store. It is sort of plasticky or vinyl. It works very well for masking. It works much better than painter's tape, masking tape, all those other kind of tapes for regular painting. The alcohol actually disintegrates the adhesive in those very quickly, and the inks can get underneath. The washi tape just works much better. Another, if you don't have washi tape, just clear Scotch acrylic tape, or not acrylic, clear Scotch tape that you would have probably in your office or junk drawer will work just as well. It's just harder to see. So I'm going to be using washi tape today so you can see where I'm placing this. So just going to take off some, and I want most of the sky, and then just most of the paper will be the sky. The top of this tape is actually going to be the horizon. So I'm just going to put it right here. And it doesn't even matter if it's perfectly level across, because that's another thing you can fix when you're matting. You can slightly tilt it if you're not exactly level. So what I'm going to do is make sure that that top seam is down very, very well. You can even take like a card or something and smooth that down. And if you want, for extra protection, you can put a second layer down here. Again, it's just to sort of keep the sky colors from down here, but you'll see that sometimes they do move down there, and there's an easy way to clean it off. In fact, you know what? I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'll just put the one layer there. Okay, so we are going to be using 3 colors of the Ranger brand. Or that's what I use. You can use any colors that you like. I'm going to use Sunshine Yellow, Sunset Orange, and Wild Plum. And I'm not using any kind of blending solution because we're going to have plenty of ink, and we're going to be moving it with a tool. That's sort of my rule of thumb. If I'm just dripping, I like to have a coating of blending solution down. It makes those drops spread much more quickly. But if I'm using any kind of tool, a brush, a straw, anything like that, or there's a lot of ink, then I don't use the blending solution usually. So before I put the ink down, I'm going to do a little bit of a practice, and I do this in my live workshop too. So we're going to put ink down. We're going to put yellow, and then orange here, and then wild plum right up here. And the technique is sort of going across the paper, but as you go across the paper, it's not necessarily across like this. You sort of pivot from that center point, like that, and you're going up and down at the same time. So I just like to have the students practice that a little bit. So pretend the ink is on here. You go like here. You're going to come down here and get that little corner filled in, and then it's up and down, up and down, up and down. And really, it's one pass. If you do more than one pass, you're really going to blend the inks a little too much, and you might scrape some of them off. So another key is if you would hold this in the middle of the straw, you'll notice as you go up and down, your fingers could very well touch the paper. So I hold the very end of the straw, and I try to get really close to the horizon because I want this top of the straw to be over the top of the paper. Again, if I would go like this, these corners wouldn't get any ink. So it's just thinking about those corners, holding the straw way down at the end, and then moving it across like this. Sort of like a windshield wiper, but you're only going across once and going up and down at the same time. So I'm probably going to do two just to show you how very different they can turn out. And what I do is, once you get the ink down on the paper, you're going to want to move with the straw pretty quickly because, as you know, the inks can stain the paper. So if you put the inks down and really sort of sit back and let it be for a while, you can go with the straw and make your sunrise. However, you will see those spots where you first dropped down the ink. So not the end of the world, but we're just gonna try to keep it from staining as much as we can. So the first is the sunshine yellow, and that's the sunshine yellow, and that's the sun. You can see my, just wipe that off. Wipe off my nozzle. Sunshine yellow at the bottom. And then I'm going to do orange out here. And then I'm going to do pink, or the wild plum, out here. And I'm going to do these little corners, little squirt, squirt, squirt. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go down, and then we're going to go up and down, 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 all the way to the other end. And that is my sunrise. And I'm going to just let this dry. Again, it's very hard to go back over it and fix anything. I'm going to show, well, I'm going to try it because there's so much ink on here. If you have a lot of ink on here, then maybe you can go back over it like this. However, if you don't have a lot of ink, you'll end up just scraping it off. All right, so I'm going to just let this one dry. Another little tip, and I'll do it this time. I didn't do it the first time, but I will do it for this second one. And that is to put down a piece of paper towel underneath your paper. Put this over here to dry. So that when you do the straw and you're pushing that ink off, it just makes it for easier cleanup. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of ink on your surface. So that one I had an awful lot of ink. This one I'm going to do a little less ink. So again, I'll do my yellow. Let me do a big sun here. And I'll do my orange. And I'll do my pink, wild plum, a little bit up in the corners. All right, and this one, there's a little less ink on here. I'm going to come down here. And now I'm going to go up have little speckles in there, but I'm just going to leave that for now. All right. You have wet ink on the bottom of your paper. You can just wipe that off. So that's my second one. I'll come back and show you the first one that is starting to dry. Wipe off as much of this as I can. Yeah, this is drying pretty quickly, but you can see even these two are very different. And every time you do it, it's going to be a little bit different, that's the fun part. You could also use different colors. And I am going to do one more and show a slightly different technique. And this one, again, I'm going to tape off my horizon. I'm going to put my paper towel down. And this one, I'm going to continue to do the yellow and the orange. I'm going to do a little pink. I'm also going to do a little purple. And maybe even a little bit of blue. And on this one, instead of doing it like this, like a windshield wiper, pivoting from the center, I'm more going to go across. Push off the, even go this way. And get more of a sun, like a sunset kind of look. So experiment with the tools by using them in different ways. By no means do you have to do it exactly like I do it, but this is what I teach in the workshop. So I'm going to let this one dry. And when these are finally dry, I think this is pretty good. Then what you can do is take off the tape. Look at how nice that masks the ink. Nice clean line. Really nice. And then if you need to clean off this bottom ink here, because the ink is actually off, this is mainly a stain. But if you want to get as much off as possible, I use blending solution because it has more of a solvent than just plain alcohol. Put it on a paper towel. That way you're really getting off any ink and what's left is a stain. And actually, I'm getting it all over. When you put the blue over it, it's going to hide that. So there's that one. This one I'm going to untape. Do make sure that they are dry before you take off the tape. It's hard with gloves on. So this one was pretty good, except for these edges here. We'll just leave that. So again, I'm going to take my paper towel, put a little bit of blending solution on it. And start wiping so you get most of it. I try to stay away from that horizon line. Number 2. And this one is very different, but I like it. And I think, you know, the sky will look even more, it would look different. Now this one, I did not put that tape down very securely. I didn't press it with that card. So that's something that can happen. And I can show you how to fix that as well. So if your tape does happen to bleed, again, blending solution on a paper towel. You're going to wipe off as much as you can. I sort of stay away from that horizon line. And then I'm going to have to get sort of close. And I'm making a new horizon line. So I sort of have a new horizon line here. That's okay. So now we have 3 different sort of sunrise options, or this could actually be a sunset as well. I have people that have asked, can I put a little dot of yellow there to be more like the sun? So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's all I can say. My tagline for alcohol inks, for anybody who's taken a workshop with me, is alcohol inks. It's a crapshoot because you just don't know exactly what's going to happen based on what's already on the paper, how much. But let's try it. Let's just see what happens. I love to experiment, so why not? I'm just going to put 1 drop of yellow here. I'm just going to let that be. Let that spread. I'm just going to blow on it a little bit. There's quite a dark line around it where it pushed that other ink out. I'm just going to leave that be for now. It'll be interesting to see what happens once we get the water painted in there, because that does change the whole look of the piece, believe it or not. I'm going to try a little clean up here. So clean that all up, and we'll see how that looks then when we put the water in. So for the water, I have put the Stream Sailboat Blue and Denim into my palette here, and I'm going to be using a brush for this. So for the water, I'll just take this one first. I like to just get it really full of ink and just start going back and forth. I just switch off with my colors. I'm staying away from the horizon right now, just trying to get most of it filled in. And if you want this to go a little quicker, you can use a bigger brush. Try to go off the edge. I think again, it's always helpful to have some paper towel underneath to absorb what's coming off of the edge, because you want to go all the way edge to edge. And as I get up closer to the horizon, I'm going to cover up all these little side parts. As I get up closer to the horizon, I'm going to make sure that the brush is not quite as wet, so it doesn't have quite as much ink on it. You can go in here first, just go across that horizon line. And if it's not perfect, that's fine, because there are waves in the distance. So they're all going to be, it's going to cause a little bit of difference there. And once I get all the water painted in, I sort of let that dry a little bit. So why don't I put that aside and work on another one? I'm going to work on this one. I'm interested to see how this looks once the water is all in. Yeah, I'm getting blue. I think one of my blues has a little bit of, I'm getting a lot of those little speckles. You people that work with alcohol inks know what I mean. Those little like pieces of dust. What's really nice is that when you're doing water, you're going to be using a brush to to sort of make those lines, you can just go like that and then wipe it off and get rid of those. I'm going to take this, now maybe do a little bit more. I just love how it looks when you add that new ink in. Really, that's what makes those waves perfect. Or it really makes it look like waves very naturally. Okay, so I'm going across it, sort of like that. And then to accentuate sort of how the inks create those natural looking waves, I like to use blending solution, and I'll just put blending solution in a palette. Don't even have to clean off your brush. It'll get blue. It doesn't matter. It's still blending solution. And once you do the blending solution, you really sort of get those very watercolor type of, try to get it so there's no glare on here. You can just see how that spreads, it blends, and gives you those natural waves. So just keep making as many or as few waves as you want. You'll notice there's a little bit of a lappy up here. Again, remember that when we're matting, if you've cut your paper bigger, you can actually cover that up. There's room to move this around and cover that area, rather than cutting your paper exactly the size of the mat. So this one, I mean, I could keep working on it, but I really like it. I'm going to keep that one as is. So another technique for the rays, if perhaps yours didn't, you didn't get a lot of rays, or you have these blank spots up in the corners, or you do have like a lot of globbiness here, or sometimes when you do the straw coming across, you'll get a blob right here of maybe some darker ink. So there's another technique that you can use, and that is the same way that we used the blending solution to make the waves on our water. You can use blending solution to do rays in your sky. So, but it's better to do this before you do the water, because you're going to need a lot of extra room down here for blending, and you can clean that off, and then the water is always the very last thing to do. So, just move that up. So what I'm going to do is put some blending solution into a clean well. And I do want to have a clean brush for this. Let's see how clean this is. Yeah. Put a brush in here. And then what you do is you start from down here, not right here, but down here. And you're going to make rays. And that way you can just sort of do your own rays. And when you get up to the top here, you have some leeway to fill that in. Yep, leeway to fill that in. Come back down. Again, no matter what's down here, we don't care right now because we're going to wipe it off and then paint it blue. So again, you can make as many rays as you want. And you'll notice because there is excess of blending solution here, you can make a little sun if you'd like. I'm going to do just a couple more. And then just take your paper towel, wipe that off. You have a little bit of globby here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to even it out. I can't fix that. I can't really fix that, but I can sort of even it out so maybe there's a glob over here and over here. And it just looks a little more cohesive. And again, then I take a paper towel and I wipe off all that extra blending solution in the shape of a sun. So that's another interesting thing that you can do. Again, if it didn't turn out the way that you were planning it to, again, but you can't really plan it. It's just going to happen. Clean that up. Okay, then if all this bottom part is cleaned up with blending to get the majority of the ink off of there. It looks sort of like a mess right now, but all we do is go back in and add our stream Sailboat Blue and Denim. For the water. Back in the Denim. Blue. And I love the mixture of all these colors, but you may opt to just do, you know, one or two, or, you know, expand. There's beautiful turquoise, patina. All of those would be beautiful as water. I'm just sort of going through what we usually use in my workshop. You could also do a lot more with maybe cool Perry as that pink, more purples and blues, sort of like we did with this one. You could also do rays coming out of this. There's so many different options. Don't feel constrained to the exact colors and the exact process. Really experiment. Make it your own. I've done a number of these. It's a little bit harder to do on larger paper, only because it's the length of the straw. It's, you know, if you can find a tool to use, I was almost thinking of doing a giant one using a pool noodle. I don't know if I ever will, but I might. But you have to sort of think in scale. When you're scaling up from a smaller size painting to larger, your tools are going to have to be larger in order to get the same effect. So I don't know. I sort of like that. That's fun. And again, then you can go back in with your blending solution. And as a little final detail, I don't always do it, but you can if you like, is to create a little bit of a reflection of the sun on the surface of the water. So this one's still a little wet. I'm going to leave that alone. Maybe on this one I could do it. Then you'll take a little bit of your sunshine yellow, and it is going to have a little bit of a green hue because that yellow is going to reactivate. It's going to reactivate that blue and make it a little bit green. But just if your sun is right here, you can just do, you want to make sure that your brush is not real wet. You just want to do like very subtle little, I don't know if I can even zoom in here, but those are just going to be a little bit on the surface of the water. Let's try this on this other one here too, since that's such a big sun there. I think I'll do is we're going to start out sort of small and maybe get bigger but farther apart. As we get nearer. I see my brush was a little too wet. I've got a lot of circles there, but you get the gist. Remember that sunlight is only coming off the tops of those waves, so we don't need a lot. But that does give it a little bit more, depth. So I hope you've had fun. I hope this sort of ignites your curiosity and gets you to experiment with different colors, different techniques. These are the, oops, actually this is one I did before. So here are almost 3 different techniques. One with going across this way or that way with the straw. These all doing sort of that windshield wiper pivoting while we're going up and down, and then these two, the addition of the blending solution in the sky for the rays. Enjoy, have fun, and if you do this project, I'd love to see you post pictures. I'd love to see what people are doing, either following these instructions or going rogue and doing it completely your own way. Have fun. Thank you. Bye-bye.